Before we get to the content, guys, if you're subscribed and turned on my notifications, you have entered for a chance to win a PlayStation 5. We're going to be announcing the next giveaway winner in about 8 days, and I was able to get my hands on an Xbox Series X, so all you have to do is subscribe, turn on my notifications, and let me know which one you want to enter for. If it's for both, that's cool as well. And it's all good if you're an old subscriber or a new subscriber to this channel, so long as you're subscribed and have my notifications on. On top of that, bro, are you tired of being single in the middle of a pandemic? Well, I got you, dude. We just dropped merch on TheFlightMike.com. It's going to be available for 6 more days. And I think last night was probably our most entertaining Twitch stream we've had in a while. So make sure you're following us on twitch.tv/FlightMike. If anyone was there last night, I'm sure they can vouch for me in the comment section down below. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro.
What's up, everybody? It's Jimmy. And over the last few seasons, there has been a lot of blasphemy.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, I'm pretty sure I've covered this trade rumor before, and I don't think there was a dedicated video made to it. I think we discussed it a little bit in a video when I said that Bradley Beal pretty much declared his loyalty to the state of Washington. He doesn't want to leave the Washington Wizards, and that's apparent, that's true, that's 100% a thing. Now, I also said in that video, the only way the Washington Wizards would trade Bradley Beal is if there was an offer that was made to them that they couldn't refuse. So when I saw this rumor online, I was kind of conflicted about making a video about it, because on one hand, Bradley Beal already said that he is staying in Washington. He doesn't want to be traded, and typically the best way to acquire a star for the cheap is if he's stamping his feet and demanding to be traded, or sometimes it's not even for the cheap. Anthony Davis did the very same thing this past offseason, and well, the Lakers had to give up a lot of assets in order to acquire him. And then if you think all the way back to the Carmelo Anthony trade as well, when he was getting traded from the Denver Nuggets to the New York Knicks, I really wish, and I have a buddy that's a New York Knicks fan, back then I really wish that Melo would have just waited out the remainder of his contract so he could have signed with New York and played with players like Wilson Chandler and the other great assets they had. They had Danilo Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, and a bunch of studs on New York back then, but Carmelo wanted to get traded to New York ASAP. New York gave up a plethora of assets in order to get him, and it was kind of silly because he was going to be a free agent that offseason as well. But this also backfired. This same logic also backfired in the past when the Los Angeles Lakers were just going to wait for Paul George to become a free agent when he demanded a trade from Indiana. He demanded a trade from Indiana, got traded to OKC. After a year of being with OKC and it seeming like him and Russell Westbrook weren't the greatest combination, he surprised the world when he decided to sign a contract extension with them. Now, of course, he ended up getting traded, but I just wanted to bring some examples of previous free agencies and stars hitting free agency and stars getting traded to further support my claim. Now, look, there has been times where a basketball player has said, hey, I'm staying in this town, I'm loyal to this town, and no matter what, I am not leaving this town. And the number one player that comes to mind when I think of this is Blake Griffin. If you guys remember, when Blake Griffin was a free agent back in the summer of 2017, there were a lot of teams that were offering their services for him. And this was back when Doc Rivers and Steve Ballmer were extremely aggressive with their free agency approach. This is literally one season after Doc Rivers and Steve Ballmer locked DeAndre Jordan into his room and made sure that he couldn't escape after DeAndre Jordan declared that he wanted to sign with the Dallas Mavericks. They literally locked him in his room and forced him to change his mind. I've never seen a situation like this in my life. As a matter of fact, I think I need to make a video about it, so let me know in the comments if you guys want to see a video about this. But what ended up happening was absolutely disgusting with Blake Griffin a season later. Doc Rivers and Steve Ballmer took Blake Griffin to an empty arena of the Los Angeles Clippers. This was during the summer. They showed him a bunch of banners, and his retired jersey in the rafters and pitched him on this idea of being the greatest Los Angeles Clipper to have ever played for the Clippers. And he was going to be in Los Angeles. Everybody loves him in Los Angeles. He was never going to leave. And they signed him to a contract extension, and 5 months later, they traded him to Detroit. You have to bear in mind the context of this situation. Blake Griffin was out the door that summer. Chris Paul already got traded to the Rockets. The Clippers were blowing everything up, and they just traded Blake Griffin to, no offense to Detroit, but to Detroit. They haven't been successful in literally like 15 years. Now, the Clippers got a great return out of this. Tobias Harris, Avery Bradley, Boban Marjanovic, a first-round pick and a second-round draft pick was a fantastic trade because this kind of set them up to establish their current core. But that's the exact situation that I believe Bradley Beal would have to be in order for the Washington Wizards to trade Bradley Beal. A team would essentially have to make the Wizards an offer that they can't refuse. And so far, it's going to have to be a pretty crazy offer. Now, there are these reports about the Golden State Warriors having the perfect trade package for Bradley Beal. And the reason why I wanted to report this is I don't typically report any rumor. It has to be a fairly reputable rumor. This is coming from Brian Windhorst. And, Brian Windhorst is one of the more reputable analysts out there. And he said this on an episode of the Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective podcast. And he pretty much said that the trade here is pretty simple. Andrew Wiggins is involved from a salary standpoint, and then it would be the number 2 pick in this year's draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves pick next year, and then I also included the Minnesota Timberwolves second round pick next year, which I also anticipate to be a very good selection. Now, to be honest, whether the second round pick in next year's draft for the Minnesota Timberwolves ends up being good or not is out for debate. For all you know, D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, and whoever they decide to take with the number 1 overall pick, which, by the way, they're also rumored to trade that number 1 overall pick for a more established star. And if you guys want, we could talk about that in a different video as well. But I'll give you a hint as to who that established star is rumored to be.
Ben Simmons.
Come on, man. Hey, they woke up. Come on, man. Okay. Let's go home. Let's go home, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go home. Let's go home. Let's go home. Oh, yes, indeed. Okay.
Listen. That made me take the headset off.
Come on, man. Time to go home, man.
Oh, my God.
Let's go home. Let's go home. Jackets on. Let's go home. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Kevin Hart.
Okay. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
You got it. You know what?
Well, Dan play pro football. If he does.
There's a bunch of issues about this trade that I'm going to get to right after we finish what Brian Windhorst says, because he also says that Golden State would be much better off if Bradley Beal says in the next month, I don't want to play in Washington anymore. Over the next month, I think they have the best offer. I think once you get into the season and they've already driven the new car off the lot with that second pick, that's pretty much consistent with what I've been saying over the past week. Bradley Beal has to pretty much stamp his feet and say, I want to leave Washington. And from an assets point of view, this makes a ton of sense. Like, if you could move on from your max contract player, which, by the way, the core of John Wall and Bradley Beal was very fun to watch over the past decade, but it wasn't going to win them any championships. It didn't win them any championships before because they were in the Eastern Conference with LeBron James, and it's not going to win them any championships in the future because, I hate to say this because I've been such a diehard fan of John Wall's over the past decade, but John Wall isn't going to be John Wall when he comes back. He has the worst contract in the NFL. He's an athletic point guard that lost his athleticism because he tore his Achilles. Unless there was some sort of miracle Achilles surgery that I'm not aware of, I'm expecting John Wall to be a lot like his former Kentucky running mate DeMarcus Cousins once he comes back. A little bit lethargic, not as much burst, not the same player that he once was. So why would you keep John Wall and Bradley Beal together when you have the opportunity to trade Bradley Beal to the Golden State Warriors, get a number 2 pick in this year's draft, which could be used on Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball to replace them, and then pair LaMelo Ball with Rui Hachimura, see what you have there? It seems like the most beautiful trade on earth, right? Everything just seems to be working perfectly, right? Then why don't they pull the trigger on this trade? Well, there's one problem that pops up into my mind. And it's maybe this is a ridiculous problem, and you guys can let me know in the comment section down below. I don't see the Golden State Warriors going for Bradley Beal for 2 reasons. One, I saw them attempt a D'Angelo Russell and Steph Curry guard combo this past season, and I figure that it's going to work very awkwardly once Klay Thompson comes back. And that's what they figured last year before trading D'Angelo Russell, although D'Angelo Russell was a little bit of an awkward fit with Steph Curry from the get-go. So how would Bradley Beal fit in with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and whoever they plug in at center? You know, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Bradley Beal's an undersized guard, so the Warriors do like going very small, but I don't think he's as natural of a fit for the Warriors as you think, and I don't think he'd be worth giving up that much capital for, especially when there's a possibility that you could go out and get Giannis Antetokounmpo at some point this season. You see, a lot of people don't realize this, but at some point or another, it's going to become apparent whether Giannis is going to leave or stay this season. There's going to be a point where the Milwaukee Bucks are either exceeding expectations and there's no way the Warriors could trade for him, or they're absolutely letting everybody down, and Giannis Antetokounmpo makes it more and more apparent that he doesn't want to be there this year. So I don't think it makes a lot of sense to go for Bradley Beal, not because Bradley Beal isn't as good as Giannis. It's just Giannis just makes a better schematic fit for the Golden State Warriors. Pretty much what you do when you bring in Giannis is you pretty much plug him into Draymond Green's role, and he's going to be Draymond Green like plus to a different degree, because he's going to handle all the responsibilities Draymond would be typically handling. Hell, you could even plug him in at the center position if you keep Draymond Green. So you have the assets to make such a trade if Giannis makes it apparent that he doesn't want to be on Milwaukee anymore. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me for you to go for a player that's a guard, an undersized guard, which in my opinion, you don't really need right now, when you could easily go for a player that your team could utilize and would make your team significantly better in the acquisition of Giannis Antetokounmpo. But that's my take. If you ask me, the likelihood of this rumor happening on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say 6.5 out of 10. The Warriors may pounce on Bradley Beal because he's a great asset at the end of the day, but at the same time, Bradley Beal isn't really stamping his feet and demanding a trade, and that's why I think it's not going to happen. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this potential trade rumor. Aside from that, I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.